everybody, my name is Kristen and welcome to Fansplaining, the series where we dive deep into TV shows and movies, and right now we are on a Westworld Season 2 kick. Every single Monday and Tuesday over here, following that Sunday night's episode, we are going to be talking about the newest and greatest things in Westworld. We're going to be talking about conspiracy theories, really analyzing, fanning out about them, talking timelines, recapping, everything that I can possibly fit into this show, I'm going to fit into this show. So if you want to join us week to week to talk about the new episodes, please hit that subscribe button. Today we're going to be talking about Season 2, Episode 2, Reunion. And like I just said, in case you weren't paying attention, we're going to be really getting into these episodes. So if you haven't watched the newest one, I can't get more spoiler alerty than this. Spoiler alert. Just subscribe and come back later. I don't want to hear it. And I think the easiest way to flesh this out this week is by trying to sort the episode into chronological order. So talking about all of the flashbacks in actual order. Conveniently, this actually does start us off at the beginning of the episode. Now, this is the farthest back that we have ever seen Dolores. It starts off the episode, Dolores and Arnold are talking. They seem to be waiting for something, and we are literally seeing Dolores seeing the real world. This is huge. This leads into something that I talked about last week of like, what has Dolores already seen? And the fact that Dolores has already seen our world, the humans' world, is an enormous advantage for her. And then Robert Ford comes in and pretty much says, yo, Arnold, is she ready? And he's like, no, nah, bruh. And Arnold makes a really interesting comment here because he essentially says to Arnold, I'm paraphrasing, but he says that this favoritism of Dolores used to be entertaining to him, but now no longer really is. And that already shows that Arnold has this like over fascination with Dolores specifically, but also in the hosts, that like he must be really intrigued by the hosts. And we get a lot of comments throughout the episode that reflect that sentiment. When Arnold begins to take Dolores to his home, he makes a comment about how his wife says he lives at the park. He also says that he doesn't always believe that humans are deserving of it, like they're deserving of the world's splendors, which clearly shows that he has somebody else in mind, Dolores, who he's already stated it's more fun to watch through her eyes how she sees the world. It's just interesting to see how early on, before his son Charlie has even died, that he has this over fascination with the host. It's almost like this was inevitable, like it wasn't Charlie's death that set him on this path. But the big thing that I want to talk about from this scene is this singular screenshot. If you missed this moment, you missed a giant clue as to where Westworld is. Now, a lot of people were theorizing actually last week from Season 2, Episode 1, that we finally had an idea of where Westworld is based off of some coordinates that they pulled from the show that seemed to put Westworld somewhere near China. And now with this screenshot, it seems like that is a very good fan theory. And I'm actually kind of upset because I'm a big fan of film theory. Film theory did an amazing video in which they explained why Westworld would be in a biosphere underneath the water, and I think that slowly but surely that theory is getting crushed, especially because we saw a helicopter go over Westworld today, or in this episode, and so I'm bummed. I was really team biosphere, and I'm gonna leave that video in the bottom bar below because I still think it's super interesting. So next up we have William and Logan, who we see seemingly on the same night, and the reason why I say that is because Arnold makes a comment that you don't need Dolores, let's put the other host in front, and then we see Angela, another host that we recognize representing the Argos initiative. I'm gonna leave a helpful link about Greek mythology in the bottom bar below, but we'll see if that is a callback to anything. And we now get context that this flashback must be before Logan and William go to the park together, because Logan makes a comment that, oh, can you believe that guy is dating my sister? So he's not even engaged to Julie yet. But then a moment later we get even more context as Angela and another host come over and do this whole presentation for Logan. And what I found to be most interesting about this scene is the emphasis on Logan being so shocked at how advanced this AI is. He even says the line line that nobody is even close to this. We are not at this. And that makes me think that this show is taking place in a really, really not so distant future. Or if we're looking at the flashbacks at the very least, the flashbacks are really not in a not so distant future, which just gives more relevance to this show because I think a lot of us were expecting to see a very, very, very advanced human world, and it would appear that Logan is just as shocked as we are. But this scene is also important because it gives us context of why Angela would be so on board with Dolores. Like, let's say Angela has now unlocked her past memories, which it seems like she must have in the storyline because she runs into William so much. If she remembers all of her past, then she also would be on Team Dolores. So now we jump a couple years into the future, not that long into the future, where William has gone to the park and he has brought the head honcho there, Mr. Delos. Delos is walking around everywhere and he's like, yeah, I see how this is pretty, but I'm really just not interested in this. But then, gone to the dark side, William goes up to Delos and is like, listen, this park shows people who they really are, and they'll think it's private. That's what we'll tell them. That's all I'm saying. But we keep on getting these sentiments from Delos that seem to indicate that he does not have a lot of time. He's really focusing on time. And that really plays into the next scene that we would see, which is a couple of years later when they've fully invested in Westworld. They've gotten them out of bankruptcy and they now own Westworld. And you see this exchange between William and Delos in which he's saying, you know, not all of us have as much time as others. And this is where things get really interesting because what's being introduced into the mix seems to be an interest in immortality. It seems to be that Delos is waiting for their tech to be updated, their tech to reach a certain point, and that seems to be an interest in maybe saving him, and that would lead us to believe that they are interested in maybe saving consciousness into a host, and a lot of the stuff that really I talked about last week. And what even further instills that is the scene that we get from Logan and Dolores just a beat later, where Dolores goes down and she's looking, she's talking about the splendor, she's always talking about the splendor, and she's talking to Logan, and Logan says what they're celebrating in there is the end of humanity. The end of humanity seems like a pretty dramatic statement, but he says it with a lot of conviction. And at this point, they have no reason to think that the hosts would overrun them, so that doesn't seem to be him indicating towards a host-human-like war. It seems to be, to me at the very least, much more indicative of that they are interested in becoming hosts. And again, thematically, that would make a lot of sense. They've just showed us the host's brains, they've just showed us that they can be removed and that they're backed up to a hard drive, that Delos has been collecting all this DNA. All of this lines up towards, is that what they're working towards? Is that going to be what the weapon like William is talking about towards the end? But we'll get back to that. And a quick thing that I want to touch on, just a quick fun little Easter egg and fun fact if you didn't know, the actress that plays Julie is actually a former America's Next Top Model contestant, and last season when they pulled that photograph of Julie that kind of like sent everything in a storm, it was a random stock photo of her. It was just something that they must have pulled, and so they must not have like necessarily thought through if Julie was going to be a part of this story, and it was really exciting to see Julie pop up in this episode. It was a super fun time. It's nice to see that she is getting some real life work based off of that one stock photo that they decide to use. So that's just a fun fact for you. Also, I just realized looking at my notes that I've been calling Juliet Julie this whole episode. I can't change it now. I meant Juliet. Don't kill me in the You're gonna kill me in the comments anyway. So great. And this brings us to a scene that I'm just going to touch on quickly where William, who has gone full dark side, he's wearing all of his dark man in black clothing, all he's missing is the hat, is sitting down and talking to Dolores, and he's talking about how, you know, he found himself in the park and how she's just a reflection of him and just belittling her all over the place, not to mention while she's like sitting there naked. Gross. But then the bigger thing that happens that'll connect to the end of the episode is that William takes Dolores to this special place of something that he's creating, and at the time that we see it, it just looks like a construction site, and then at the end we obviously see Dolores go there and she says that it's a weapon, and this obviously leads into, is that an immortality thing? William, as a grown man, as the man in black, says that it's his biggest mistake at the end of the episode. There's a lot of stuff surrounding this and is going to be surrounding this weapon, whether to take that literally or if it's just something Dolores can use to her advantage. And that brings us, whew, are you tired? Because I am. Finally to the present, where we are seeing pretty much, we see again the beginnings of people and guests figuring out that things have gone wrong. We see some workers who are upset that they've been working a 13-hour shift, yada yada yada. But the bigger thing that happens is that Dolores comes downstairs and she wants the technicians pretty much to show Teddy his past so that he can begin to understand her like revenge quest. And the things I want to talk about here first are Teddy, is that like it's really interesting to see how Teddy reacts to seeing himself dead, essentially, because we've only seen really a couple people get to react to like figuring out their past, and to him it's like straight anger. Initially anger and hurt, and I think it's going to be really interesting over the next couple episodes seeing if he comes down from that high or if he rides the revenge train with Dolores, because it certainly seems like if he ends up dead at the end of this season that he is going to, you know, come down from that high and be like, listen, this isn't the way. But Dolores is on such a power kick, it's insane. Which is the second thing that I want to talk about. Dolores, I mean, the Jesus imagery has never been so strong in the show. If you thought season 1 was biblical, can't say that word right now, biblical, then you had no idea what was coming for you in season 2. Everything from the way that she stands to the way that she speaks, it's very clear that she believes she is the savior and she knows the way, and that she has to guide people and show them. Even when she says, show him his history. Like, doesn't that sound like some biblical stuff to you? Even though in this story, I'm not sure that she would be Jesus or Lucifer, or I gotta brush up on my Bible, I'm so sorry. So the next thing that we see, which is huge, is she finally runs into Maeve. We have our two most awake hosts running into one another, and it is a super, super weird interaction. You have Dolores, who again is just acting very holier than thou, and she's like, there is a war to be won. Stand with your people. And Maeve is like, listen, I understand. I'm also free. I got stuff to do. So let me through though. And I think like everyone who watches this show is Team Maeve. Maeve is just like the best, the most badass character. It was just a really interesting thing, and it's going to be interesting to see if that does come to a head. And keeping in mind, something that I kept on thinking about was Dolores' sentiment that like not everyone deserves to go to the valley beyond. That could come into play. She might think that Maeve is not deserving if she doesn't join her. But then we move on to our next scene where Dolores is essentially going to get an army. Again, if this doesn't look like the Last Supper, I don't know what does. Biblical imagery. Dolores is collecting an army. She's doing whatever she can. She had the technicians awake this Confederate so that she could show the people like, hey, this is what's going on. But what's interesting about this scene for me was I was having a big discussion with my boyfriend whether if these hosts stay dead because they're programmed to stay dead, or if they can like work through the pain, because do they really even like feel the pain to the level? Could they turn off feeling pain in their brains, I guess, was kind of the question that we were like talking about with one another. And it seemed like the only thing the technician that she dragged down to like then rise this army from, it seemed like they were not in pain, like they were just in shock, and that all he had to do was press a button to awake them. So that really makes me think, like, is this an army that literally could like kind of fight and reawake through any injury? Just something to keep in mind. So now jumping away from Dolores, it seems like at the same time that this story is happening in our present, that also William, the Man in Black story, is happening in our present, where he is, you know, trying to also get to the valley beyond, the door, whatever we are calling it. And this also is the first time that we're kind of introduced with the idea that like William and Dolores are probably like kind of on a race to get to this place, because it's then revealed that William is also trying to get to his greatest mistake, which is Dolores' weapon. And it's sort of going to be like a who can get there first sort of deal. But we get some really cool scenes. He rejoins with his old buddy. They talk about mortality. Head back to Pariah where they first met, and they run into a character that we haven't seen before called El Lazo, played by Gus Fring from Breaking Bad, and I was freaking out. I was freaking out about it so happy to see him with a full face. Yet again, we have this weird thing where it seems like Ford is talking through this host. It's not as like blatant as the last episode where you literally thought you heard Ford's voice underneath the young Ford. However, in this one, it's very clearly the same things of this game is meant for you, William, but you have to do it alone. All of this stuff, and the most striking thing from this scene, obviously, is that the entire army that William was hoping to collect shoots themselves, and so it's very clear that, like, Robert wants Will to do this on his own. He's had this ego all this time. And it again presents the question of, is this all programming? Is this potentially like Ford is alive and put his consciousness in someone else and he's still pulling the strings somewhere? I don't know, but it's all very interesting. And that's kind of everything in the episode. Again, we leave it off with this weird like thing of like, what's the weapon? What's the biggest mistake? What's the power move that William had made? Like, there are a lot of definite things up in the air, but I think that this episode was so important in learning what Dolores knows, because that's so super gonna influence what happens now. And it also reflects the stupidity of the humans in the past for letting the hosts do all of these things and not thinking that they'd learn and or be able to ever remember. You know, that was a huge oversight. Now, something I really wanted to talk about quickly was a theory that a lot of people had from last week's episode, but it really plays into the themes of this week's, which is there is a possibility that the Bernard that we saw like wash up on the beach last episode is not in fact Bernard. The more that we're learning about these brains and this consciousness, it seems more clear to me that we are definitely going to see some hosts that aren't who we think they are, where their brains will be taken out and put into somewhere else. I think there's a very good chance we're going to see Dolores in other people's bodies. I think there's a very good chance we're going to see a lot of people transferring their consciousness all over, whether that is eventually the Man in Black, whether that's, who knows, but I really am seeing a lot of traction for the that wasn't Bernard we were seeing last season or last episode, we just thought it was. And please let me know how you're feeling episode to episode. Part of the reason why I wanted to do this series is because I just love talking about this with people, so I want to talk to you about it in the comment section. Leave a comment about this week's episode. And now for our final segment, who knows how long this video has gone on for, and that is surviving or thriving. Dolores, she thinks she's Jesus. She's thriving. Angela, I don't know if she's surviving or thriving. That girl, she needs a shower. I will tell you that much. She don't look like she feeling her cleanliest self. Teddy, poor Teddy, he's just surviving. He never asked for any of this. He just wanted to be with Dolores, and now, William, our Man in Black, I feel like he's only surviving right now, honestly. He thought he was gonna be able to build himself an army, and this is not as easy as he thought it would be. Lawrence is thriving. Lawrence is just having a good time. I don't think Lawrence understands what's happening. Maeve is thriving. Maeve is thriving. Maeve's always thriving. And finally, Juliet, thriving. I'm really more talking about the actress because I'm just so excited about the stock photo thing. Whew! And that, my friends, was season 2, episode 2, reunion of Westworld. I would love to hear your theories about the immortality, about Ford still being alive, about, you know, where is Westworld? Anything that you got from this episode, please comment down below. Again, be sure to hit that subscribe button so that you get notified every single week of when I'm uploading these episodes so we can talk about it. And if you want to find me on other social media, I'm at Kristen pretty much everywhere. Otherwise, I will see you in my next video. Bye!